Yeah, I can't hear either.
Can you hear us now?
Yep. Yeah, you were on mute.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we're ready. We're all set then, Kim. Thanks.
Okay. Am I on?
You are.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Proposed payments to 100 Carlson Road LLC totaling $6,457.89. Payment to Anshin totaling $11,914.50. Payment to Bond Sholnick and King PLLC totaling $10,501. Payment to Philadelphia Insurance Company totaling $533.24. Payment to Savin Engineers PC totaling $227,244.88. And lastly, a payment to Watts Architecture and Engineering totaling $14,854.70. Any questions?
Comments or questions? Seeing or hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the expenditures.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. That gets us to two other items that we're going to have to act on here to authorize RFPs for insurance and for the design of the first project. I've asked Pepin to prepare a little presentation with respect to the schedule to make sure everybody understands why we're doing this and why we're doing it now. We're not going to be able to award these contracts until the plans have been approved and we're ready to go. But what we're trying to do here is make sure we're ready to go when we're ready to go. And there's a fair amount of dead time with respect to getting particularly architects and engineers in place. So that's what our purpose is, and Pepin will show you here with this chart.
Okay. So the board has seen this chart before on the screen. We are asking for authorization to release the RFP for design services for the first group of projects in order to keep the overall program and schedule, as Chairman Richards mentioned. To put it simply, there are many steps in the planning and implementation process for this phase of the program that must align perfectly, successfully, and concurrently in order to make the statutory June 2031 deadline. Some of those steps include program verification by the architect of record, formation of building advisory committees and user groups, and approval of the entire plan by SED, and of course, approval of the financial plan by the Office of the State Controller. And of course, there are the 36 timely SED approval that are needed of the project plans and outline specifications that need to be in alignment with the cost estimates, cost allowances, and of course, the approved financial plan. So if you look at that sketch or that Gantt chart on the screen, you'll see those yellow segments that are the 36 approvals that I said are required. And the last one is the diamond under the F. That's for SCD approval. For example, for MLK School number 9, which is the first project out of the hopper, SCD approval is needed by September of 2025. The second project, I believe, and Rolly can correct me if I'm saying this incorrectly, that's Wilson, and SCD approval is expected in December of 25. For Franklin, SCD state approval, commissioner's approval, is needed by March 19, 2026, before we can bid, the projects out. Of course, and that goes for the rest of the projects. So this means that we have to work backwards. And if Kim, you could go to the RFP schedule that's in the RFP itself. you'll see that the award would have to be made in June of June 10th, 2024. If you look at the page 2 of the RFP itself. So working backwards, the interviews with shortlisted providers would have to be May 19, 2024. Of course, continue working backwards, May 16th for the invitations to interview firms that are interested. The proposals would have to come in by May 9th. And we in April, we would have to get questions from bidders April 25th and provide answers to those questions April 29th by 5 p.m. We would like to show them the building so they can be familiar with what they are proposing on by April 18th. And of course, April 10th, which is tomorrow, will be the ideal release of the RFP. So if the board is okay with releasing this document, it will save us a whole lot of time and money. And again, this is towards reducing overhead, obviously. And while we're waiting for the controller and the Board of Ed and SCD to review the materials submitted, we could use some of this time, if not all of it, to get things going. And also, we worked very hard with council on the agreement, both Rolly and the team, to make sure there are no surprises to the proposers on the terms and conditions. As Chairman Richard said, we're not asking the board to enter into agreements right now until the full Phase 3 master plan with all 5 volumes have been submitted to the Board of Ed in New York State. But the schedule is aggressive, as we've been discussing over the past 5 months, and architects for the first 3 projects.
There really are 2 critical path elements that the board needs to be fully cognizant of. The first being the program, and in terms of market, both materials and labor cannot afford to lose another summer of time construction, which is what will occur with any further delay in the selection of architects starting at the design. And secondly, and probably even more important, is that we must complete Wilson to allow the swing space to become available. But Douglas as a final project in the program to be completed by the mandated June 2031. So again, we have compressed the situation into one where these projects need to work like clockwork. Each of their construction schedules do have some space that allows for contingencies during the construction process, but is not inordinate. And we are really up to the wall in terms of starting the process with the selection of design professionals, followed very, very shortly thereafter by the construction managers.
Evan, you mentioned started the first group. Is that the first line on your Gantt chart?
Yes, the first group of projects, Ron, would be MLK number 9. That's the first one. Wilson and Franklin. Awesome.
We also have the swing space illustrates that, but we've also got to try to work within the schedule for the school itself. In other words, try to avoid as many mid-year changes or disruptions as we possibly can, because these are gut renovations here, and kids are going to be moved in order to allow us to do them.
Yeah, one of the criteria school district has established is we only wanted to move out students in the swing space between school years.
Right.
Sometime during the summer. The schedule has, once construction is completed, we have some students being moved back into the renovated space mid-year. mid-year disruption. But we didn't want to disrupt the students on the
You can take them out.
upfront side.
Yeah.
Figuring on the back side, at least they're moving into fully renovated space.
Right.
There'd be some excitement, disruption to their education mid-year, but you know, there'll be some interest in getting back to the space. Versus disrupting students on the front side when we're taking them from an existing school and moving them into swing space. That's not so exciting. So, which means, and I think Rolly had hit this, that so with that parameter in place, if we miss a deadline here, it's not like it shifts the project a couple months. It shifts it a whole year.
Yeah, or at least 6 months, yeah.
Yeah. So what, so like if the school number 9, and when we're gonna start construction, you know, if we miss it, we're gonna push it a whole year.
Yeah,
Right.
you're right.
And thus, every scaffolding down, every project after that would then be impacted accordingly. So, it's crucial that we hit these timelines at this point.
Plus, this is tied into the district's reorganization plan too, isn't it, with respect to these junior high schools particularly?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, all this.
I mean, you're assuming that these schools are gonna be ready to,
Yeah, they're all intertwined, you know, between the projects, the swing space, and how the Invest in Tomorrow plan all came. Assume that these things will be happening along the way.
we did benefit, or have benefited from the fact that the project in phase 2 and phase 1 for that matter, has issued a lot of RFPs for this kind of services. So I believe we've gotten better at it. And we certainly have learned from some of the problems we've had, and we've had some, you know, with respect to it. Remember, this is not easy work we're given to these people, but we're being asked them to go into these older, complicated structures and rebuild them in many respects. And it's not easy. And you're gonna run into things you don't anticipate. It's just the way it is. So the way in which this RFP is put together tries to work around that. And our lawyers who had experience on both sides of that, including some things that didn't go so well, have been reviewed these documents and made some changes. Hopefully we'll be in better shape because of it. Okay, other questions or comments about this?
It goes to that, you know, first and foremost, what we mentioned up front is previous work on phase 1 or phase 2 work as part of this initiative. You know, I read that and I can see the optics of it being like, hey, you're just looking for the same folks to come back and do this again. I don't know that that's the case, but we also don't say how much we're going to weight that particular criterion. I'm wondering, I'm not saying we have to remove it, but I'm just wondering, does it have to be number 1 right up there? I mean, to me, it's the experience with New York State Education Department, SCB, doing this type of school work, understanding what those requirements are. And then if you've done some work and you're familiar with, you know, that to me is a little different. But to lead with that, I sort of get this impression that, you know, you could have some folks out there. Plus, we're in a different world where you just don't have the same labor force.
Same people, yeah.
Nine services. So that was number 1. Number 2 you know, I think I couldn't remember. I was trying to find. I think it might have been like Form 12 or something on there, where we're asking them for sort of their client and the work they've done. The other thing I would suggest that maybe we think about asking, either in a form or otherwise, is what is their current capacity? In other words, how much are they already committed at the time that they respond to it, recognizing that they may have multiple proposals that they're sending in. But I'd like to know, because if you tell me that you're gonna give me a PM and the PM is 90% committed already, it doesn't do a lot for me, you know? At the same time, I don't want somebody who's 90% committed, because that really tells me maybe nobody else wants it. So I guess, you know, going with the Goldilocks approach, you know, not too hot, not too cold, just right, somewhere between 9 and 90. I'll leave it at that. I've really narrowed it down. But I thought that was something that might be just good information to ask. It helps, get a better understanding for what that capacity is. We can have a team that checks all the boxes. But all of a sudden, I'm looking at it going, if I'm reviewing the proposal and seeing everybody over 90%, I don't know how they're staying to that schedule. I really don't, so I only bring up those two things. I just think.
Well, we can provide for that, can't we?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
certainly do that.
We'll do that.
Yep, we can.
One thing I would say, Rich, is,
We do that like phase one, late 1 or 2, where the key people had to be, that was in their RFP, had to be on our job. Because we had to approve at one point when someone was gonna change some folks. And that was language that they put in, that the team that they pitched were actually gonna work on it. Or we had a meeting.
You're absolutely right,
They were
Brian.
changing that.
We added language to that effect. And again, there's,
Put the language in there, no, they will,
Ye-
don't try to bait and switch with it.
That language is in the contract.
Oh, okay.
good,
so we have that. And also there's the issue of financing too. Local labor is a big thing with Comida. So we try to give preference to locally based firms.
Yeah.
But again, it's a statewide project. The state is aiding 98% of it. We
Yeah.
invite everyone across the country to come in and show interest, as long as they'll do a good job for us.
I'm good with. Number one, though, the minute you put a number next to something, somebody.
Right, they look at it. Okay,
Priority or order or ranking, that was my only thought. on
can
it.
make those changes.
I have no
Right.
problem keeping it in there. I just-
we'll change it,
Sure.
Yeah. One thing I would say, Rich, about that is that the work on these modernization projects is a little unique. And there is an advantage to having been put through the ringer on one of these things. So I do want to keep it as a criterion. I think we need to think about it, and all of the other things being equal, that could be an advantage. Because it is a unique process, and it can cause people to run from the room tearing their hair out. So we want to be careful that these people know what's coming. The other thing I'm really personally interested in, your comments bring it up, is I'm interested to see what kind of response we get. One of the things that we've been worried about from the beginning of this project is the state of the local construction and labor market. And the fact that people are very busy, it's driven up the costs of projects around us, some of them spectacularly. We've tried to deal with that by using estimates that have been updated to present numbers, but that's not foolproof by any means. And so I'm real interested to see, one, how much response we get, how broad it is, and then what kind of money we're talking here. This wouldn't be a complete answer. Obviously, the design is very different than the construction, but it maybe give us a hint about what we're going to be facing.
And also, Terry put a whole list of architects that we want to reach out to. How many of them are on that list, more or less, average? 21 of them so far that we listed that will show interest, so we'll see how it goes. And Rolly, you had something to say?
Yes, on the point of experience with this RSMP, the criteria also, and that's what the important driver is, asks for specific experience with urban school systems, which are very, very different than suburban school districts. And beyond that, there is a whole evaluation matrix chart that we can share with you that we go through in terms of all the criteria, how it is judged and weighted, as well as then we.
Be
rank
no dancing during the meeting, Jesse.
I figured we're not providing that criteria to them, so when you list it first, wouldn't want to scare off some of these firms who look at it.
Yeah, well, we're gonna change that. We're gonna change it. Yeah, we're gonna change it.
Otherwise, I thought it was a really good RFP from my old ways of responding to these. I certainly asked for enough, but I felt like there was enough flexibility that somebody could shine too. And you're not just gonna get a bunch of rote responses, in which case you might as well just do an RFQ, right? If you
Mhm.
right, tell you how they would do something specific. With some of the schools and all the maps and everything else. So kudos on that.
And we try to align it also with the nature of this program itself. as much as possible.
That's exactly, that's what we were talking about.
Right.
We're trying to not just change the oil, we're actually replacing
Right.
parts of the car while we're driving it down the highway.
Yeah,
So, yeah, we need somebody.
gotcha. Okay, so we'll make that change.
Other comments or questions? Seeing or hearing none, then with the amendments to the RFP that we have been discussed by Mr. Perrin, I will entertain a motion to approve its issuance. It's been moved. We need a
Second.
second. Moved and seconded. Any further comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, folks, it's gonna be very interesting to see. This is gonna be our first response here. First market response to the program. Okay, the next one is a little less interesting, but is with respect to the assurances. Sorry, you said, Pepin, you want to say anything with respect to that?
Sure. Again, since the program started, there was a need to bring in an insurance consultant to review all certificates for the program itself. We've developed a rubric of what should be used for professional service consultants and contractors to use, and there are different limits that the board already approved. But we also need that firm to review the bonds issued by issuers to make sure that they comply with the program's requirement and New York State requirements. Since the program has already retained a program manager, you have a council, you're about to retain architects when the plan is approved. We need to bring that insurance reviewer on board as quickly as possible to review the certificates and also work with the ICO to make sure each firm contracted with the joint board is compliant with the insurance requirements. In phase 1 and 2, I believe, Rick, we had Lawley Services working with us, and they've done a nice job. We were about to extend them, but BSK thought it would be better to send an RFP out and show, draw some competition, and maybe we'll get better pricing.
This really shows up when we start bidding the projects. Because you're having multiple prime contractors here. We're also encouraging the use of MBE contractors who are smaller, for whom some adjustments occasionally have to be made, or at least some care has to be exercised in terms of making sure we got everything covered here. It's not as simple as, here's your policy, go do your thing. We've and intentionally created a complicated structure here. We got to make sure the insurance covers it. Okay, questions or comments about this? Good. Insurance is supposed to be boring. If your insurance policy is exciting, you're in trouble. So, good. I'll entertain a motion to approve the issuance of the RFP for the insurance services.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Hearing or seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. That completes our items of business that need to be taken care of. We do have some great things to report, though, with respect to the progress of various portions of the project, and particularly the plan. So we will turn that over to the project manager's report.
Yes, the first item.
Well, I hope yes. You say no.
No, it's not an option.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you could go to the next page, Kim, I'll go over the first item, which is the cost summary. This cost summary has already been updated since it was submitted to the board last week, following a meeting with the school district that was very effective, I'd say very fruitful, and I'll ask Mr. Farr to help me with that a bit later. The difference here is the capitalized interest is shown on this report at the bottom, and this will be a discussion later. In any case, so far we've distributed expenses throughout the projects. We are using this format to report the expenditures to date. For school number 9, we've processed about 156,936. Wilson, we allocated expenses for 259,660. Franklin, 459,793. East, 156,438. Edison, 274,305. Douglas, 265,462. For a total of 1,553,894 towards the $475 million program. So we've also shown a percentage of each project of the overall program. MLK is 98% of the program itself, and I did the same thing for each of the projects. So at the very bottom, you'll see that the project is about 1.32% complete. We've paid 1,553,894 today. And that's the cost summary report itself. So again, the capitalized interest, I'll skip that discussion for later. We have some good news to talk about later.
That's, obviously this isn't too meaningful at this particular point because we're so early,
Yes.
but it's going to get meaningful as we begin to progress here. And I think when the program is really rolling, it'll be very important for us all to have an agreed upon format that we're used to looking at. And we can look at and pretty quickly tell, is the project okay? Are we all together ready to go here? So that was the purpose of this. If it isn't perfect for that, we can modify it as we go along. But
We can.
I was encouraged to get that in place now, rather than wait until we start spending a whole lot of money here and then try to come up with a system that works. I want to go into the project with that in place.
Okay. The second item we want to talk about is go back to the agenda, if you don't mind. It's the strategic plan itself. We've had a series of planning meetings with the school district, capital market advisors, and Wells Fargo to plan the short-term and long-term financing of the program. We've shown the effect of capitalized interest in an analysis with 3 scenarios that Terry helped me with. We showed calculations with $16 million of capitalized interest for the program, 17.3 million and 21.2 million. Our budget was 16 million. Wells Fargo came up with 21.2. Capital Markets Advisors they were in the middle with 17.3. The effect of CAPI on the local share was very significant, which caused us a lot of grief. And we had a series of meetings with the school districts, in particular the vice chair, to kind of strategize on how we're going to reduce local share. So one decision I believe the district will make or is about to make is to see if they can carry the capitalized interest fund through general fund, because this is what other Big 5 districts have done in the past. Yonkers just did that recently. Syracuse did the same thing, and Rochester should not be any different. What it does, it really frees up resources for construction and maximizes the dollars we have for bricks and mortar. With that, I'm going to ask the vice chair if you could help me with the discussion we had with the finance team yesterday and the decision the district will make to help the process.
Yeah, so with a budget of 475 million, as got initial costs in, and well, you could check me, I think originally we were getting projected costs about 60 million higher than that. So we had to start scaling back the scope of the projects, each of the projects. I say scale back, prioritize the mechanicals or the electrical, plumbing, and not get the full rehab that we would want to get. So the challenge becomes with that reduction, and then if the capitalized interest at $21 million, if that was folded into the project itself, that we would finance that through the debt, that's $21 million more off. So we started looking at ways to free up dollars here that we could get more dollars into construction. And that's the purpose of what we're trying to do here. And so part of that is to finance this is non-aidable. So finance the capitalized interest, have that carried through the district through budget allocations, which with the current finances of the district, which are extremely strong, we would be able to do that. And that would then free up additional resources to put in the project. So that's the whole theory. We were just talking about this. I have to write this all up, at least from my part, to the superintendent who's on this call, has not been gotten an update from me on that yet, but that'll be coming so that we can look at that. And ultimately we need to put this together to present to the Board of Education for their consideration. We also made a change, or looking to make a change on the short-term financing for the bond anticipation notes. Again, and that's to pay for the continuing cost here of ramping up operations until such time that we did the first bond issue. We're looking at doing 3 bond issues in 26, 27, and 28. And so we need some interim financing to cover that. Again, we were looking at doing a 1-year bond anticipation note, and then renewing that for another year to get us through 24, 25. And so another thing that we could do is, in lieu of issuing that debt and incurring the issuance costs and the interest, is use district resources, which is what has been happening so far, where the district has advanced to date resources to pay for the operation here. The district has a strong enough cash position where we could continue to do that at least for another year. The numbers are getting larger. I think we were estimating up to potentially $35 million. But then we save some resources, cost of interest and issuance costs. Ultimately, the district does get reimbursed from the first bond issue. But these are both actions that are considerations, again, to try to maximize the resources that we have to put to construction for the project, so that we get the most work done. And it's also consideration of while we have cost estimates, the labor market, we're anticipating the construction labor market. Chairman Richards had mentioned that earlier. We'll find out, but what we know, it's tight already. We know there's some huge projects in Western New York that are going to be coming on board that will suck up even more labor for long periods of time. So it could be that we have to pay more. We go out to bid for these construction projects, we may have higher costs than we would otherwise like. So we want to make sure that we have some resources to put to that as well. So it's we're using some strategies here to try to, and as we're putting together a financial plan to submit to the state controller's office.
So that decision actually is a win-win for not only the program, but for the district. As the vice chair said, there is a savings of almost $2.7 million of interest on the note by not doing a ban. So if the board is, amenable to that decision, we can certainly, because we worked with Wells Fargo and my team, our accountant, until 1 o'clock this morning. And we advised all the documents already. Mike Mahaney already provided the existing debt to capital markets advisors. We've plugged that into the model. And we're ready to submit a final draft of the financial plan to you and to you by tomorrow if we have this marching orders to remove CAPI completely
Right,
from the model.
right.
And the only thing we need to do now is update the narrative because what I gave you is now obsolete based
Yeah.
on that decision.
Well, let's hope that's what it is. I mean, I mean, one of the things that is true about these projects that makes this approach particularly important. There's no better time to spend the money than during one of these projects, because we're gonna empty these schools out. And that's probably not gonna happen again for, I mean, who knows how long. So even a small amount, I mean, relatively small, like $1 million, that's not small, but it's small in this, when you're talking 470 some, can make a huge difference. Because you can apply it to do things in the school that you just would never get around to doing because of the magnitude of what it would take to get the kids out of the way and get the program this fixed and that fixed. And some of it's not just kids out of the way, it's the fact that the building's torn up. And so you have access to things that you wouldn't ordinarily have, and it can make a huge difference in terms of what's finished here. So, and those, the more we keep that in mind, the more we're able to do that, the better. I think it's important. I know this isn't, in the end, it's probably the thing that falls off the end, but I think it's important when the kids go back to these schools that they're impressed. I really do. I think that's one of the positive things this and some, but I think they should feel, wow, look at what we got. So let's hope we're able to do it.
And Chairman, the other thing we discussed also is another $4 million savings with the insurance charge. We're trying to get waived because they just waived it for Yonkers. And we're asking for the same deal in Rochester as well.
By whom?
That's what we're all saying, because they didn't do it for phase 2 or
Yeah,
phase
but
1
waived by whom?
State,
by the state
Oh.
itself. Yeah.
state insurance.
The state insurance?
Yeah. Yeah, it's point
Oh, it insures the debt.
percent, I think.
1,000, yeah.
Yeah, so
So
yeah, it's about $3.5, $4 million.
$4 million bucks, yeah.
And this is actually insuring the debt, is what it's doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense, does it? Yeah, I mean, that's circular,
yeah.
about it, yeah. But Since when,
But
since
you know,
when did that have anything to do with it?
to your point, we are on the schedule here, the two big full gut rehabs are Franklin and Wilson. Students out 3 years. Right? So you're right. This is not like you don't do,
It's not gonna happen again.
yeah, so Franklin's almost 100 years old. So we want to get as much done as we can. We want it to look as good as we can so that, I mean, we think about 3 years, there's students who might be starting high school there who if they're coming in as a freshman, they won't go to that high school until they're a senior. So when you look at, they're going to spend their high school career at Marshall or wherever they might go, but that's where we're using swing space. And so we want to maximize as much as we can. The same thing applies to Wilson. We want to maximize as much as we can during this period of time so that when they come back, they can feel good and they can feel good about it.
Yeah.
The students who have been inconvenienced, and then of course, the students as they come in future years, you want it to look good. and it's gonna be expensive, we know that. So every $1 million counts, which is kind of a strange thing to say, because obviously it does, but every million that we can free up in some other, using some alternate strategies is gonna be that much better
Right.
for those schools.
Give me an example. 46 school, which is right over here. You drove by it maybe on the way over here. We've done school 46. And it actually was enlarged, but it had some long halls. And the halls look very institutional, or did look very institutional, just because you couldn't help it, you know? So one of the things that the architects, to their credit, came up with, well, we'll paint them differently. You know, so they won't look like a tube. They'll have a decorative sense to them, and then when you look down this hall, it doesn't look like a long hall anymore. It looks like something else. Plus, it's a couple $100,000, because that everything does, you know, but I mean, it was great to be able to do it. And, you know, if we could do it there, we could make that decision within the confines of our budget and so forth, and we were able to do it. Once you're out of there, you know, getting the district to cough that kind of money up to paint a stripe down the hall, it's tough.
Yep.
Yep.
It's tough.
There's one-
Okay,
I'm sorry. There's one topic we didn't talk about is the refunding opportunity that could save a whole lot of money as well. But that requires obviously no legislation. I don't know if it's something you want to talk about soon.
well, there's nothing to really do about it yet until we're ready to do it, but one of the program has been in existence long enough that by that I mean the modernization program has been in existence long enough, as it has been in other cities, that some of the debt is eligible for refinancing and actually would be refinanced at a savings. So the cost of the debt itself, the payments that we made to the debt, will be less than anticipated. Takes a state legislation, not so much to do it as it is to make sure that the benefit doesn't go back to the state of New York. But if we could come up with a mechanism for doing that here, and then generate finances because of it, that would be another source of funds for the project. And that's so that was done in where? It was done in Buffalo, and where else was it done?
Syracuse.
Syracuse. I don't know, I mean, Syracuse is getting away with murder. They keep bringing it up all the time. Who was running Syracuse down there, man?
Someone with 6 months of experience.
Yeah, right. But I mean, I bring it up because, you know, it would strengthen our argument. Hey, why not us, kind of thing.
Yep.
But it would be great to do, and it's how much is it, we think? We did it today?
I don't have a number yet for this one, but I can get that for you from
Yeah.
Gensi.
Yeah, just to be clear that we, you know, the debt could be refinanced. That's not the point. It's the savings you accrue from the refinancing right now. It just goes to the benefit of states, the state.
Right,
So the legislation needs to say, authorize that if you refund the savings, the proceeds, can go to the project, right? Which seems fair enough, and so that's the thing. Obviously, you have to quantify that, and then, you know, we'll have to make
we got to do some work on it, right?
some proposals to Albany, but that would be another strategy to free up additional resources for the project.
Okay, what else have you got?
About the master plan development, volumes 1, 3, and 4 have been completed, approved by the Board of Ed. And I sent you a new link late last night. It was very late, so.
Yeah, got it. I got it.
Okay. And if you have an issue forwarding it, we can maybe put it on a flash drive for you as well.
Okay.
So that's ready. Well, I'm happy to report that volume 2 is ready to go. I'm just waiting for the narrative to be updated based on the recent discussions we've had. And I can get that to you by tomorrow. So technically, you will have a full master plan this week if you want to go to the state with all 4 volumes.
Yeah, well, so the process, because of the timing of it, volume 1, 3, and 4, the Board of Education approved, accepted on March 28th. We're still working on the volume 2, which is the financial plan. That then is scheduled to go to the Board of Education on April 25th. And then we're in a position to transmit these documents to the Facilities Planning Department of SED. And the big point then, getting to a point where we need to have a conversation about the design and construction schedule. That's the big conversation with SED about all these reviews and what is on the timeline for each of the reviews. Like each of the initial 5 reviews, there's allocated, I think, about 2 weeks for each of those. Final review before commissioner approval, I think we gave a month, 30 days, something like that. So we're gonna need to have and that replicates itself over 6 projects. So as mentioned earlier, there's 36 approval. Now I said facilities planning maybe 7 months, 9 months behind. So we're gonna need to have some cooperation here. We're gonna schedule a meeting. We're gonna go over this. And that'll be a very key moment to see what kind of commitments we can get from SED for turnaround times. Because if they're not willing to make those commitments, or we're not able to encourage them to make those commitments, then this whole timeline doesn't work. So that'll be a key meeting. We're going to try to get that scheduled with SED as soon as possible. That's a school district, that's Savin, Gilbane. Just getting everybody together, walk through the strategic plan, but the most important thing at this point is the timeline.
From our point of view, the point of view of the board, RSMP board, we will need to formally vote to approve the plan. That would happen after it's approved by the district, and they've approved some of it. Remember, I got volume 1 to you guys, which is really the substantive volume already. There have been changes to that, but they have not been dramatic. They don't change the import of it. And then the financing section is as Pepin indicated, will be ready shortly. This review, or this attempt to review the matter with SED, which is so important, is kind of an informal process. In other words, it's a process before we actually make an official filing, which is actually ours to make. It's and so but that may mean that we need to call a special meeting to do it. You'll get a copy of the finance plan. You'll be sorry you did. It's it's brutal in terms of its detail and the kind of things that are involved. Only Pepin could love this thing. But it's critical. I'm making a joke out of it, but if without it, we're nowhere. So I really do appreciate all the hard work that's gone into it, and not just from Pepin, but and his crew, but also from the 2 consultants that we hired. So the fact that we get that ready to go, and it's ready to go and approved, you'll have a chance to look at it. You can make of it what you want, and we'll provide people to discuss it. But we may have to call a special meeting to do it. Because what I wouldn't want to have is for this schedule to shape up and us say, well, oops, let's take a month off. You know, we don't want to do that. But a lot of hard work went into this. A lot of hard work on the people from the board here who Pepin and his crew, but also by the district. The district has been very involved in this. And this really is their plan, which there has been some criticism of in the past. You cannot make that criticism of this year. They have really been involved in this and are driving it, and it's their plan that's going to get implemented. So all the more reason for us to be as supportive here as we can be to get this thing done.
If I may add, Mr. Chairman, with the decision of the capitalized interest, we are able to reach 95% eligibility for all the projects, all of them, including school number 9, which has been a challenge for the past 3 months. So, and thank you for that decision because it really solved many of our problems.
The other thing is we decided as a strategic matter to get the plan done. In other words, we want to be able to say to people, here it is. It's done as far as we're concerned. And let's, so that we don't get into a situation, well, I can't really react to it until you do this or do that or do something else. You know, we want to have our part of it done.
Yep.
And it will be.
With that, concludes our report.
Any questions or comments for Pepin and the crew here?
I have a simple question. You talk about challenge of contractors. We see the issues and we've got these big projects throughout the state. We see the challenges with on-read items. Obviously, with big corporations, you can throw money at it. At a fix. You have that.
Is definitely a challenge. I'll give you an example. On a Yonkers project, they were expecting a switchgear a year and a half ago. It just showed up 2 months ago. And after the board spent almost about $400,000 with temporary power, you know, generators, jerry-rigging, MacGyvering electricity with electric contractor to get there, to get the building ready. So after we got that solved, there were issues with ERUs, energy recovery units, air handlers. So there's a company in Canada we're able to find that could get those units to us because we couldn't get anything from Train on time and many others. And I'm sure, Brian and Terry, you guys are experiencing the same thing in some of the projects you're dealing with, the parts.
6 months, 12 months, 15 months is not out of line. Generators have been a nightmare. HVAC components for, back to it, Tom, you had brought it up 12 months ago. Can't pre-buy because they won't let us do that, but extended timetables, they are getting better. Prices are going up.
And this is one of the reasons we want to get going now.
Yeah.
So we can get submittals in.
Well, and quite frankly, it's a matter of finding out where the weaknesses are, because there are
Right.
going to be some.
Yeah.
We did try out the state with respect to whether we could pre-order. Because some of this stuff is common, across all the projects. That's against their policy. I don't know that we maybe haven't given up on that yet, but as of now, it's not available to us.
Yep.
It might, if we went back with something, I'm thinking that maybe if we went back with something specific, we could get them to go for it. If in the course of the planning here, we came up with a particular kind of piece of equipment that's common across the projects and would save us a bunch of money to buy and made that proposal to them, they'd be more amendable to it than just the general principle. But as of now, no. Other things. Okay, hearing nothing further, the meeting will stand adjourned. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
You know what I don't have? I guess I don't need it right in it, but the how the
Did that be the mistake? May 18th?
oh,
Should that be April?
yeah, yeah, there's a whole, well, see what he's pointing out here?